It's time for the Thyworm weekly roundup with my curated news and personal gaming endeavors. Are you enjoying these? Consider subscribing. Guys, we're back from India, more on that at the end of the video with some personal updates. You guys probably expect me to talk about Wolcen. It had a rocky launch while I walked some rocky mountains. I've heard stories of game-breaking bugs, in particularly the online mode, while I was talking about IT architecture in a boardroom in Pune, India. And yesterday, when I arrived back in the Netherlands, I started playing Wolcen myself, around 1.5 weeks after the launch. And so far, I'm level 28 now, doing Act 2. The game runs fine and I've only experienced one progression bug which YouTube helped me solve. I'm not really having issues with this game yet. As a matter of fact, I'm quite enjoying this whole thing. I'm making a necromancer. It's not an amazing build, but it is getting better and so far I can take on the content. I think after a few more patches, this is a game that you can sink some serious hours into, depending on endgame, which I haven't experienced yet. I'll keep updating you on my journey. I may stream some of it as well, but enough Wolcen for now. Let's talk about some more action RPGs in a rather slow 2 weeks of news, to be honest. Last Epoch is getting closer to a 0.7.7 patch release, as the devs are already teasing stuff. How about this new bad guy, also featured in the beta trailer of the game? And what's even more interesting, it looks like Chapter 8 might take us underwater. I don't think I've ever played an action RPG underwater, so I'm really curious to see how this is shaping up. NAXIA, an indie action RPG, provided a little bit of a sneak peek into their March release. It's really been a while since we heard from these guys after the initial launch into early access. I covered the game back then, told you it was not recommended at this point in time, and I stand by that. However, it's early access and this game could grow. What we've been teased so far are some character models and a statistics system that sounds very familiar. According to the devs, unified stats make their way into the game. There are 3 of them: physique, balance and spirit. Basically warrior, rogue and mage statistics. I honestly don't find this news very exciting and I really hope there's more coming in March than these sorts of updates. These news messages from the devs indicate mostly that this game has yet a long way to go, when basic statistics implementations are newsworthy. I don't mean to be cynical and it's nice to see that they're working on stuff, but since the launch in November 2019 the game hasn't gotten any new content, and in its current state you can finish the game within 1.5 hours. So let's hope that besides mechanics we're getting some additional stuff to do when the next patch drops in March. Sanctum Breach, a Diablo 2 inspired indie action RPG created by a single developer, released patch 1.4. The divinity tree is no more. It now has 2 passive trees next to your already available skill trees. The passive trees have roughly 140 nodes and 24 keystones. Developer Sam Keats implemented a nemesis system. This feature was teased in an interview between Sam Keats and Wolcen. I'll link that down below, and now it has made its way into the game. It works basically like the system in Shadows of Mordor. If an enemy kills you, it becomes your nemesis and it becomes stronger. You lose XP and only by killing your nemesis you will get that XP back. Seems like a fun system. In the new patch it's now possible to upgrade relics and uniques by improving them up to 10 additional item levels. Last patch a working minimap was implemented and this patch it's got a few more updates. For example, portals are now visible and the zoom you set in the minimap is now persistent across instances. Previously, the zoom reset to the default value when entering a new instance, which was rather annoying. Encased, a turn-based post-sci-fi action RPG, released 2 news updates. One is a 25-minute long video of one of their 3D artists creating a bug. Interesting if you're into that sort of thing, but the lack of voiceover takes away some of its relevance here. 2 is the dev update, which still has this weird AI-like voiceover. Here the devs talk about the changes to the story that the first patch brought. The game changed in a big way, overhauling a lot of elements. In future patches, the devs promise less changes to existing content and adding more new content to explore. This was one of the criticisms I had on the first content patch, basically recycling content instead of providing much interesting new stuff, so I'm glad to hear this resonates well with the plans of the crew of Encased. Killsquad released their Genesis patch, which replaced the whole first act, and it has a good number of new features actually. There is now a quest system to help you get through the recruitment act. Contracts are fewer in number but gained quality. New enemies and enemy progression, new locations, new gameplay mechanics and voice acting and storyline. On top of this, a new chat lobby was added, which should make finding games a lot easier. Future plans contain 2 patches to the Veteran Act. One patch drops in April and the other in June. More details on that later. Besides overhauls, the dev team is working on a progression system that feels more meaningful than the current one. That is really needed, by the way, because this is a pretty big minus currently in Killsquad. Another pretty big minus is still the player population. I tried to play a game yesterday, Saturday afternoon, and I simply couldn't find anyone to play with. Grim Dawn posted on Twitter that they are yet releasing another update later this month. I thought that with the definitive edition release, the updates would basically cease to exist, but I was wrong. More on that next week after the patch dropped. Alaloth, champion of the Four Kingdoms, broke their silence and released a small news update on what the game will look like at release. We'll learn more about the titular character Alaloth, once a god and now visiting the mortal realms. The Four Kingdoms are explained, each with their own inhabitants. Goldwood Forest in the northwest, occupied by elves. Carrickone in the northeast, inhabited by dwarves. The Desolation of Baga, territory of the orcs, in the southwest. And finally, humans live in the southeast on the Blessed Kingdom of Adarest. Adarest itself is explained in more detail. Once it was a peaceful state, but now several houses are warring with each other. There's more info in the article, I will link that down below. Chicken Police announced their game will be fully voice acted. This buddy cop game featuring a lot of animals and a noir cinematography piqued my interest and continued to do so. Now they have added professional voice actors for their 30+ characters, and I honestly can't wait to get through this narrative. We don't know much else about the game apart from its art style and detective influences, but I don't mind. I'll keep you posted on this. Some personal updates while I show some pictures of India. I had to travel to Pune, India, for work. I am an IT architect, and part of that job is explaining our IT architecture to our offshore colleagues. I did that for most of the weekdays, went out during the night, and in the weekend we explored Pune itself and saw some beautiful temples, and we went on a small trip to Lonavala, which is a hillside area with lakes and amazing views. Going to India is also kind of a reality check, with some rather extreme poverty in places like Pune and Mumbai. You see families sleeping on the street, eating out of garbage bins, rat-infested markets where people buy their food, and overall a pretty miserable scenery as soon as you get out of the popular tourist areas. I'm always grateful to live in a country like the Netherlands, but especially grateful after once again witnessing this. Puts the gaming business also in perspective. And that's all I have for you this week. Follow me on Twitter. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you all next week. Love you all. Bye bye.